we're Group 1, and we're going to talk about South Africa's development status. First, we're going to talk about the development of the country through the monetary approach, then through other methods. Thirdly, we're going to talk about the poverty situation method measurement, then the demographic situation, the inequality situation, and then our conclusions.
Now we start with the development of South Africa and the monetary approach. As we can see in this graph, the GDP per capita in 2022, it was approximately $6,700, and in 2023 is expected to decrease until 6,458. In the GDP per capita progress, we can see there is a high growth rate from 2002 to 2007. This is because of a combination of better export prices, a stronger rand, less inflation, and lower short-term interest rates to spark the economy of South Africa. In 2008, we can see that it's not very affected, and from 2008 to 2011, there is a high growth rate because of the economy improved soon and registered a GDP growth over 3% in 2011. In 2011 to 2016, we can see a sharply decrease. This is because of floodings that distracted the service delivery. Many people lost their life because of this. There was also a fall in mining and manufacturing production. And in 2020, we can see a decrease because of the COVID pandemic, but it recovers in 2021. In 2022, we can see there was a slightly decrease until 2023, but in the next 5 years, there is a low but steady growth. In the list of countries with higher GDP, South Africa is placed 92nd, and its GDP is the 77% of the average world's GDP. The size of South Africa's informal economy is estimated to be 28.8%, which represents approximately $338 billion at GDP point per parity levels.
Now I'll be presenting the poverty situation measurement. Let's begin with the monetary approach. First of all, in South Africa, there are 3 national poverty lines that are based on income. As you can observe from the graph above, there is the lower bound poverty line, the upper bound poverty line, and the food poverty line. As of 2023, an individual living in South Africa with less than roughly $56.06 per month is considered to be poor. Further, according to South African national standards, people who have less than about $40.27 available for food each month are considered to be living below the poverty line. Looking at the graph below, by 2040, it's predicted that the percentage of people living in relative poverty will fall from a 45% to a 41%, but the number of people living in extreme poverty, in absolute poverty, will increase from 88 million to around 130 million. Regarding the capability approach, the South African Multidimensional Poverty Index determines a household's level of poverty based on 4 aspects of life: health, education, living standards, and economic activity, each one of them with their own weight and indicators. For example, health is composed of just one indicator, child mortality, and living standards carry a few more indicators than just one, representing therefore a bigger weight. If the household's score is 33.3% or above, they are considered multidimensionally poor and live in poverty. Additionally, more means, more opportunities in different ways should be granted to these vulnerable individuals in order for them to pursue activities, states of life, and therefore real freedoms. Moving on to social exclusion, South Africa has managed to make significant progress in reducing poverty, but it's critical to focus on the widespread of child poverty. In South Africa, poverty is frequently a sign of a poor and unfair educational system, which keeps many people in very poor conditions. Therefore, the government of South Africa places a very strong emphasis on achieving the goal of increased access to quality early childhood development for future economic prosperity. Also, the National Development Plan of 2030 is one of the plans and policies in place by South Africa to support the achievements of this goal.
Outside of the monetary approach to development, the most holistic measurement to understand South Africa's evolution is the Human Development Index. The HDI is composed of life expectancy of the population at birth, the expected schooling years, and the gross national income. South Africans have an average life expectancy of 62.3 years, expecting schooling years of 13.6 years, and a mean of 11.4. Lastly, a Gini, gross national income of $12,948 per annum. This makes South Africa rank at 102nd in the World HDI ranking. Furthermore, we can see on the graph how South Africa, contrary to the rest of Sub-Saharan Africa, develops at the world average. Secondly, child mortality rate can be used as a measurement of general healthcare within a country. This is computed at deaths of infants below 1 year of age per 1,000, which has halved from 50 to 26 over the last 2 decades, showing a clear improvement in healthcare. Lastly, social exclusion is also a factor that increases inequality within a country, which can be measured in the level of employment with a negative correlation. However, contrary to the other measurements, employment in South Africa hasn't developed in the 21st century, maintaining significantly low levels of employment between 40 and 45. Nonetheless, we should take this with a grain of salt because it could be due to a significant underground economy.
About the inequality situation in South Africa, even though there are major topics to talk about, I think that the most curious one is racial inequality due to its geographical situation. As we can see in this graph of poverty and race in South Africa, Caucasian or white people are in a very, very low risk of poverty, or basically there's no poverty people that are white. However, comparing to the black people, there are a lot of people that are living between this poverty, between below the poverty line. There's also other topics to talk about, for example, the land reform. And here we can see that there is a continuous issue of land ownership and a distribution. And a part of this, there is apartheid era policies that dispose Black South Africans on their lands. About their employment, we can see that there is high unemployment rates, especially among young people, and there is a lack of job opportunities that exacerbates the poverty and inequality. In terms of corruption, we can see that there is corruption in between the government and public institutions. Also, when coming to the economic inequality, we can see how there is a high global income inequality ranking, and the majority of wealth and opportunities is in hands of this white minority. To finish, access and education, we can see that there is a progress improving into their education for Black South Africans, and that there is sufficient disparities in education inequality between the Black communities and the white communities.
Now let's go with South Africa's demographics. South Africa has a life expectancy of around 65 years old and a population of a bit less of 60.5 million. Its yearly population growth rate is of 1.2 increase, and the infant mortality rate is of 23,703 per every 100,000 kids that are born. In 2022, 1.2 million births happened compared to 750,000 deaths. Therefore, there's been a population growth of over 500,000 people. Now, in South Africa's language demographics, South Africa has 11 official languages. As seen above, these include Afrikaans, which is a variation of Dutch and is spoken by its descendants, and English, and these are the most spoken languages by the white population. Furthermore, there are another 9 ethnic languages which are spoken throughout the country's region and primarily belong to the native population. With its demographics transition, South Africa is placed in stage 3. This is because both death and birth rates are starting to fall, and there's starting to be high urbanization. In terms of opportunity for the demographic dividend, South Africa has similar amounts of working population compared to the population that can't work. However, it's got a really low non-working population over the age of 65. As seen before, it's above the average South African age. Now, with South Africa's ethnicities, as seen in the table, South Africa's population has been growing at a steady pace over history. However, we can see how the only ethnicity that has been growing is the Black population, and white and Asiatic and mixed ethnicities have remained quite constant throughout history.
To conclude, South Africa falls into the middle income category. By this measurement, with a GDP per capita that is above many low-income nations but still significantly lower than high-income countries. It is number 92 on the list. While evaluating development through other methods, we found the country made significant strides in infrastructure and other areas of development. However, it also faces challenges such as high unemployment and income inequality, which can hinder overall development. The poverty situation measurement used was the Multidimensional Poverty Index, and it shows high poverty rates. The demographic situation is in stage 3, with a large youth population and diverse language and ethnicities, which is directly linked to the inequality situation that showed high levels that limit the access to opportunities and resources for a great part of the population. Our conclusions are their development is complex and the country has made progress in various areas, but South Africa's greatest challenges are to reduce inequality and poverty while addressing demographic challenges. Thank you for your attention.